Hi, my name is Jeff Clark. I have a question for you. How would everyone like to get away from the and go to the nice weather, get out of this cold and dreary weather? Well, the place I'm going to talk to you about is the Hawaiian island of Oahu. Hawaii is a very popular vacation spot, especially for people honeymoon. So the three things I want to talk about will be the geography and part of the cultural background, and some of the attractions you will see if you visit there. First thing I'm going to talk about will be the geography of the island. Oahu is located southwest of California in the Pacific Ocean, and a couple of popular cities on the island is Honolulu, which is the capital of Hawaii, and also Waikiki. According to visitoahu.com, Oahu only takes up about 597 square miles, and the population on the island is just over 905,000 people, and it is considered to be the second oldest island of the islands they allow visitors to come into. There's like two islands, or one is just for natives only. You have to have special reservations to get, or invitation to get in there. One is, like, used to be a U.S. Navy bombing ground. And then it's located between Kauai and Maui, as you can see. The island is made up of two mountain ranges, which are the Waianae Range and the Kaulu Range. The Waianae Range is said to be one of the oldest parts of the island, at about 4 million years old. And there's also a lot of volcanic craters on the island, but they're said to be extinct. And some of the craters are like 1,000 feet high and a mile in diameter. And a couple of the most famous craters on the island that some people talk about all the time are Diamond Head and the Punch Bowl, both of which are popular tourist attractions if you go there. And another thing about the geography, as close as it is to the equator, the average temperature stays between 74 and 88 degrees all the time, and it only has like 50% humidity all year long. And even when it's at the hottest point of the year, they have these winds called trade winds that come in, and it keeps it relatively cool there. Most of the stores and hotels and stuff they're called open air stores. They don't have doors on them, and they just let the breeze. That's kind of like the air conditioning. And the thing that makes it one of the best spots is due to the water temperature stays at about 74 degrees year round. Secondly, is talk about the culture and how diverse background that everybody has there on the island. There's a lot of people from the east and the west, several with the natives of Hawaii there. And the reason that all these people came to Hawaii, one of the reasons was back in the late 1800s, the pineapple and the sugar cane crops they figured out the agriculture benefit there, and they had to hire workers. So workers came from like Japan, Russia, Portugal, Puerto Rico, and all over to come and work on the plantations. And they all lived there, and then as the work slowed down and they quit producing as much, they had to quit working, and instead of going back to their home countries, they stayed and set down roots in Oahu or in Hawaii there. And that's why you have so many different backgrounds, religions, and different types of ethnicities. The final thing I want to talk to you about the attractions that people go to visit when they're in Hawaii. One, of course, is Pearl Harbor because of its historic value. And when you go out, take a boat out there, you can go out over the platform and you can actually see part of like the top of the Arizona, and the flag is actually attached to the mast of the ship where it went down. And that is where 1,177 men are still entombed to this day. Probably the most popular attraction in Hawaii. And then the next one is the Punch Bowl, and this sits way up in the city, up on a hill, and it's one of the craters I talked about earlier. And that is where a lot of the people were brought that fought in the Pacific Theater during World War II. They were brought and buried there in this cemetery, and there's about 33,259 people buried in there. And another thing on Oahu that I did when I was in Waikiki was take a submarine ride, take a boat out to sea, and you go down and about 120 feet below the surface, and you can see all kinds of marine life and hopefully maybe see a shark if you're lucky. And then also the Dole plant, which you can go and take a tour of and sample and send pineapples back, I guess, if you want to. And then you can also visit Diamond Head, and if you've ever seen a picture of Waikiki Beach, it's normally the main backdrop there, and you can go hiking up that crater if you'd like. And there's a lot more activities to do than what I've listed, but those are just some of the big ones. In conclusion, Hawaii is a must-see vacation spot because of all the beautiful climate and scenery and diverse culture and many tourist attractions. So if you ever get a chance, enjoy Hawaii and all the benefits. Thanks. I look forward to hearing everyone else.